You're on Facebook now.
I think we're on Facebook now.
Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Pazito Radio. And this is the time we're going to talk about the COVID-19. My name is COVID-19 versus immigration. And because I am not a legal practitioner, and then there's a lot of things that is happening in, I can say, the world. This is the reason why today I have invited the law professionals for them to educate us about what is happening. COVID-19 and immigration, or COVID-19 versus the immigration issues that you may not know. So I would like to welcome the panel, but I would like them to introduce themselves, starting by Sharon Akumia.
Hello, my name is Sharon Akumia. I'm a lawyer. I'm not an immigration specialist. However, I am quite interested in how COVID-19 is affecting the BAME community, and also I have a background working for the NHS and dealing with the BAME community within the NHS.
Okay, I'll go to Uncle Ben.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Bernardo Wisu. I'm usually called Uncle Ben. We have a radio program on Thursdays and also on Fridays. We obviously as a community have concerns about the impact or disproportionate impact on our community, which is the Black, Asian, and minority ethnic groups. So today's program is to look at the effects and what each person can do to ameliorate the possible effect on us.
I'll go to Mr. Reginald, I think the surname is Elizabeth, the Amherst.
Yeah, my name's Reginald Arcus. I'm a barrister specialising in immigration, human rights law, and arbitration law. The main purpose of today's event, as I understand it, is to relate to the Ghanaian community and the BAME community at large, the impact of COVID-19 on them and its relationship with immigration issues.
I think, thank you all for all this wonderful introduction. This is a time human beings are dying because of their legal status. And the first one is, some people are saying, I can just bring that one, I cannot go to hospital because, I think before this, when you go to maternity, that one I know, during the maternity period, you need to identify yourself. So that applies also that everybody knows nowadays, if you go to hospital and you don't have the status, you will be arrested. I can give one example that his name is Elvis, that was in The Guardian, that he died because he was scared to go to the hospital. So I think this should be an opening thing because it's in the newspapers everywhere that this man named Elvis from Philippines was scared to go to hospital just because he doesn't have the right document to stay in the United Kingdom.
Well, I mean, yes, as some of you may be aware, the case of Elvis, a Filipino man who was living in the UK illegally, was afraid to go to hospital, was also concerned about the cost implication to go to hospital. And unfortunately, he passed away last week. There has been rumblings in the community that there are people who are shielding themselves from going to hospital because of concerns they have about the impact of immigration enforcement and also potentially the cost. Unfortunately, there are incidents where, as Agnes has stated, members of our community who have gone to seek medical help have been reported to immigration. and some of them have been detained and also removed. And therefore, the concerns are genuine concerns, which are held by our community. But let me say this. COVID-19 is a communicable disease. And because of that, its investigation, its diagnosis, and its treatment is free under the NHS Act. It has been added to things like tuberculosis and HIV. These are communicable diseases which are taken seriously by the government, and therefore there is no cost implication for anyone. Again, people don't realize that primary care in the UK is free. For example, some of our community members haven't got GPs because unfortunately there is an erroneous belief that going to GP means that you need to have a legal status in the UK before you can register with a GP. But again, the GP's contract with the NHS clearly states that their treatment at the GP surgeries is free of charge. Indeed, a GP has a duty to register any person who comes to their surgery who falls within their practice area or practice boundary. And the law makes it clear that it is only in 3 circumstances that they can prevent or refuse to register someone as a patient. And these 3 are: 1, lack of capacity; 2, if the person is outside the GP's boundary area or practice area; and 3, that although they may be within the practice area because of their particular condition, the GP believes that the distance in traveling will not be helpful to the patient. When you go to the GP, you have a right to be registered. If the GP doesn't register you, he ought to treat you within 14 days and give you a reason why he hasn't registered you. You can then make a complaint to the GP or a complaint to the primary trust where you live. And again, I must emphasize that GP surgery treatments are free. Again, what is free is any treatment at accident and emergency department. So any treatment at all at accident and emergency department, any NHS walk-in surgery is free. What is not free is the secondary treatment, which is further treatment after the accident and emergency, or GP's referrals, which then goes to a specialist, a consultant, or to the hospital. The reason why the secondary treatment is not free is that that part of treatment is based on what we call ordinary residence in the UK. And the definition under NHS Act of ordinary residence is somebody who has lawful residence in the UK.
This is amazing, Uncle, because I'm so surprised to hear that it is free. Because I know a lot of people who go to the GP and they've been refused. And because we don't have the status, we are scared even to go further. Thank you so much for giving us a broad idea, because even to me, that's what people have made me understood, that they went there and they said they couldn't. And if the person doesn't have the right status, you can't push and say, oh, you go. If the person go and the person is arrested, it means you push the person. So I'm really, really happy to hear such an education about this, because we all have the myth and say, oh, when you go there, you'll be arrested. Thank you so much, Uncle. Bye.
Also, so this issue about undocumented migrants and overseas visitors has been raised by a number of MPs. So the Ghanaian MP, Belle Ribeiro Addy, the Labour MP for Streatham, she recently wrote, along with 60 cross-party MPs, to the Health Secretary to ask them to suspend the charging of NHS or reporting to immigration when they find that they have somebody who is not entitled to free NHS care. And she's asked for that to be suspended for the whole of the COVID-19 crisis, which could well be within the rest with us for the next year or so. even if we come out of lockdown or we have a partial lockdown here in the UK. And the reason why they're campaigning for that is quite interesting, is because many of people, especially from our community, the BAME community, we have underlying health conditions. So we may go to have treatment for COVID-19, which is, as Uncle Bernie has rightfully said, you will not be charged, or you would even be asked about your immigration status. But once they pick up that you have a secondary issue, which also needs to be treated. For instance, you may go in for COVID-19, you may find out that later on you have diabetes. How many undocumented migrants know they even have things like hypertension or diabetes or kidney problems until they present themselves? That's when then that's a secondary condition, which then results in them having to charge. And the MPs are saying, let's just scrap that right now, because not only are you causing people who should be getting treatment, because COVID-19 is so contagious, and from even reporting to the hospitals and seeking treatment, and not putting other people's lives at risk or themselves at risk. But at the same time too, you're going to start putting pressure on doctors and nurses who are already scarce on the ground in hospitals, having then to go and report to immigration or having to do investigations. From my background, I once worked for a department in an NHS trust where we were investigating people who weren't entitled to free NHS treatment. And I'll tell you, it's not an easy process. You have to investigate. There's no one document that tells you of somebody's status. So, and often people hide their status. People run away from hospitals when they know that possibly their undocumented status is an issue, which then again causes harm to the community if they have something like COVID-19. So the MPs are campaigning, which I'm supporting, that they look into that and just scrap the case, the charges and the investigations, even to relieve the doctors and nurses who then are on the front line, who then have to do the administrative work of chasing immigration and or reporting people. Which, to be honest, most of the doctors and nurses, in my experience, they've never liked the idea of doing that. That's not what they came into the medical profession to do. Also, there's another issue. Many of our doctors and nurses from our own communities who have been hired to come to the UK have to pay an NHS surcharge. So when you come into the UK, you have to pay a surcharge. Many of our doctors and nurses from Ghana, from the Philippines, from Nigeria, who come here to serve the NHS, pay surcharge. They don't even get free treatment for the treatment that they give to others. And so they're also talking about charging that. Now, I know that each year they have to pay the surcharge. And I believe that what the government has said is that they're going to suspend it for this year. But there's a bigger argument to be discussed about that too. So those are two things that I know at the highest level being discussed with the government.
Thank you so much, Sharon. I think we are having really a broad idea about the whole thing. It baffles me. Because if you are not there and somebody tells you, because the person has experience, you believe it. And that's a scary thing as well. So thank you also for elaborating us on this issue. We go to Uncle Reginald now. Because Sharon was talking about whereby even our own nurses they charge them. So with that one, I want to ask a question. Because some people, they charge them, and if it fails, do they refund the money? But some people pay for the NHS. And even if the application is turned down, do they have a refund for that money?
Well, I mean,
I think it's £500.
So can you just repeat the question? Sorry, I didn't.
People do application. As Sharon was saying, I just want to, because she said it now. It's that our nurses, they have to pay for that surcharge. But this one, after I said it a little bit, people do application and they pay $500 for that NHS. Do they get refund if it's been failed with the application?
Well, you're saying if their application is refused, do the office refund money? I'm not really.
Okay.
Let me help here.
Yes.
Now, the fee actually is £400 a year. So the typical 2.5 years is £1,000. It's going up to £649 in October. If your application is refused, you get a full refund for the NHS.
Okay.
If it's an entry clearance, you get a refund as well. This is paid by any person who is coming to the UK for more than 6 months. So usually a student, they get a discount. Children will get a discount from October, but again, is rising to £649. And the question you ask is, do they get a refund? Yes, if it's refused, you get your money refunded. But I think the issue that was raised by Sharon was that there are people here who are working in the NHS.
Yeah.
These people, in addition to working for the NHS, are paying their taxes.
Yeah.
And we know that is our taxes which is used for the provision of free medical care in the UK. So if they are paying taxes and they are providing services to the NHS, and these are the people who are most at risk at COVID-19, because yesterday in the Times, for example, the number of nurses and midwives who have passed away because of COVID in the NHS is about 53%. The BAME is about 43% to 45% of the NHS. But listen to this, the number of doctors and consultants and specialists is 91%. Those NHS doctors and specialists who have died, 91% of them is either Black, Asian, or other minority ethnic group. And these are the broad issues that people are saying, that we tend to suffer most when some of these things happen. And therefore, as Sharon has pointed out, some of the MPs, I think it was 60 outside yesterday, and this is a cross-party session of MPs who have put in a request for the government to look at amending the law to save our people. But the problem that you highlight is that somebody's working, paying tax, sacrificing their life. Why should they pay IHS, which is going up in October?
Yes. So it's something like a petition going on in October.
Well, the petition is now. It's been done by ILPA, which is an Immigration Law Practitioners Association. It's been supported by the members of Parliament, which is cross-party, and I'm sure there are other groups that are supporting this as well.
That's amazing. I think it's time. It's time because a lot. If you look at the papers, newspapers, it's sad when you see the faces and you realize. Where I work, I've seen a lot of people who have died that I know personally. It is sad. It is really sad. It's scary even going to work at the moment. So, okay, so now you have people, my dear friends and, people watching. This is education, free education that we are having at the moment. Don't get scared. You can go in there with COVID-19. Don't die in silence. This is why we are here today. So is it that after, what people will fear is, are they going to, I want to dive deep into this because are they going later on to check on us? I mean, those who have undocumented. I think this will be something that will be at the back of their mind. Okay, I'm going in now. They're going to write my name, and later they will chase me. Is that something that is not going to happen?
Well, I wouldn't say it's not going to happen. I mean, because once they've granted you the treatment, you've had your treatment, and the Home Office then begin to investigate you, then I think, to put it colloquially, all bets are off after that. After you've had your treatment, you're not going to get any other concession.
As we're talking here, Uncle Ben, as we say, is Mr. Bernardo Wusu of BWF Solicitors. So after the program, if you have anything that bothers you, Uncle Ben, if you call Uncle Ben, he specializes in immigration, so he can help you and you will understand, especially those from our issue. The communication barrier becomes a big issue. But Uncle Ben is there, so you can go into our dialect and speak to him about your worries. And at the moment, I'll open the phone line. You can phone in and ask any question, and our lawyers and solicitors and barristers are here. That's why they are here. And the numbers are 0161 818 8172 or 0161 818 8206. If you phone any of the numbers, and the WhatsApp is 0748 742 3272. If you phone, they are here whilst we are having this chat to be able to communicate or whatever you want, they can discuss with you. So this is about the COVID-19 and all this. So Uncle, now we are here. We are talking about COVID-19 and all those things. So now, to my knowledge, if I go to the GP, because I'm coming back to that because I have a lot of communication with people, and then the GP says, I will not register you, what step or where should the person go?
Well, I mean, first of all, the NHS is aware that is happening in the community. So if you look at their guidance, which anybody at all can look at now, they've advised that before you go and register, make sure you print a leaflet online. It's called How to Register with a GP. So print How to Register with a GP. On the leaflet, they have stated categorically that a GP cannot refuse to register you because you haven't got a passport or you haven't got a proof of address. They have stated categorically. They have also stated that the GP, the word they've used is must. They said a GP must register you unless he's got reasonable cause not to. And the reasonable cause is 3. So if it's not because they haven't got capacity, if it's not because you are outside their practice boundary area, if it's not because you are within the practice boundary area, but because of your particular ill health, he believes that the distance from your house to the surgery will not be good for your health, he cannot refuse you. Well, if it's refused, as with any complaints procedure, your first complaint is with a GP. So you raise it with a practice. The practice will usually have a practice manager who will be in charge of complaints. The practice manager is required to give you a response within 14 days. In any event, if the GP says to you, I'm not going to register, say, for example, you walk into a GP practice today and you say, well, my name is Bernard Owusu, I want to register. And the conversation goes like, well, where's your passport and where's your proof of address? So you say, I'm sorry, I haven't got a passport, I haven't got a proof of address, but my address is number 23 Dawson Road, which is within the practice boundary area. The practice will know that. They cannot say to you, I'm sorry, we can't register you, so go away. That itself is a breach of their contract with the NHS, which again is clearly stated in their contract. There's a form that they have to give to you. It's called GMS1. On the form, I think it's paragraph 7 of the form. Again, it's stated quite categorically that a GP must register you. So if you go to a GP's practice and they fail to register you, you raise a complaint. If that is not dealt with to your satisfaction, you can raise another complaint, which you can find on How to Register with a GP. The email address is there, and it's with the NHS trust in your area. And if that fails as well, then you can raise it with either the local authority and the parliamentary ombudsman, who are in charge of all local authority works, including GP and primary trust work. So you can raise a complaint with that ombudsman and they will be able to resolve it. I know the problem is that our people are sometimes timid. It's not because they are timid per se, but somebody who's there working illegally, maybe looking after 10, 20 people back home. Now, by his calculation, he believes that if he's detained, he can't support any of these people wherever they are, whether in Nigeria, Tanzania, Gambia, Ghana, anywhere. So his preference is that, you know what, I'm going to stay out of the GP practice because I have been told that if I go to the GP, I may be reported to the Home Office. The other misconception is a view that if you go to a GP and you use a GP services, it may affect your immigration application. As I've stated throughout, the GP's services is free, so there's no charge incurred. You may go to the GP and say, I want to be a private patient. That's between you and the GP. But if you go to the GP and you say, I want to be registered, the GP has two types of registration. There's a permanent registration and there's a temporary patient. The temporary one is for people who live within the practice boundary between 24 hours and 3 months. So if you live somewhere for more than 3 months, you need to be registered as a permanent patient. If you've, for example, you visited your girlfriend in, let's say, in Southampton or Milton Keynes, and suddenly you've fallen ill over a period of 2 days, they can take you to the GP or accident and emergency, and the GP ought to register you as a temporary patient. Again, the procedure is the same. And can I highlight again that print how to register with a GP? It's online. Print it and take it with you. And if they say they won't register you, just give it to them and say, this says that you must register me.
Thank you, Uncle. I think it's a fear as well, especially when we come into our people. It's a fear that we have that when we go there, this is what will happen. They will arrest me or they will chase me and they are asking. So when we go there and they ask for your status, when the person comes home, that's it. We won't get there anymore. And then we'll be taking our own paracetamol and everything to treat ourselves, although we were sick. Because some people have lived here and not 2 years doesn't have even GP. They don't have GP.
I don't know whether Sharon or Reginald wants to respond to that. But what I say is this. Now, your health is more important than your livelihood. Now, we are now in lockdown because we're weighing the life and livelihood. And they're saying life is more important than livelihood. So at each point in time, if you are unhealthy, if you are ill, you cannot earn a living. So the emphasis should be on your well-being. And that is why because the GP service is not only about headaches and pains, it's also about mental health. It's also about emotional health. It's also about psychological health. They provide those services there. And if you have issues with your mental health or psychological, clearly you can't function properly and you cannot earn a proper living. Yes, there are people, I've seen cases where people were working for manufacturers illegally, and some of them had their fingers cut, and a finger cut, and they didn't go to hospital. A finger has been cut off. They didn't go to hospital because they were told by the owner that as you haven't got papers, I can't take you to hospital. They took them to a friend who, for whatever reason, was able to plaster it. And he came to see me after 2 months and said, lawyer, what can I do? When I advised him on what to do, he said, I'm afraid I can't do that because I haven't got paper. And clearly, those circumstances, there's nothing you can do. All you can do is to re-emphasize the fact that your health is more important than earning a living.
Yeah, I totally agree with that because as Uncle Benny said, your health is it comes down to if you're here and you're working to send money back home. If you're ill, how are you going to work? Absolutely. So you do need to seek at least primary medical care. And Uncle Benny has emphasized previously that it includes A&E care, and that's also walk-in clinics, minor injuries units, major care, urgent care units. Those all come under the primary healthcare remit, and when you go there, you will be seen without any issues, without any charge, without anybody asking you about your immigration status.
I mean, I'm just short of words because I think it's education. That's what it's about. It's education that we have to go to the right person, as I said earlier. Because if you go to these lawyers like Uncle Ben, he will tell you what is right and what is wrong. But what we tend to do is we listen to people. We see, this said, oh, and he said. So the person is not professional. He doesn't even have a clue. He's also telling what he's heard from others. So please, if you are on and you are listening, go to the right person. Going to doesn't mean the lawyer is going to report you to immigration. No, it's like going to hospital, going to the salon. You are going there to do your hair. You're going to the lawyers to seek help. They are not going to say, we are going to report you. That's their work. So let us stop listening to what people tell us. If I say people, I mean those who are not professional in that particular field. Because they tell you, because as I is saying, your hand is caught. I know somebody who was knocked down by a car and stood up and went away. He just stood up and went away. Why? Because he was scared. That's what he was telling me yesterday. Because he said, oh, my sister, I'm happy you sent me the leaflet about immigration. Because my friend just fell 2 weeks ago, and I was surprised that he was with me. I was trying to call the ambulance. He refused. He just stood up and then went away. And the person who knocked him down was surprised. The white man was surprised because he said, how can you go? He said, no. He left just yesterday. You see what we're going through. And then this accident will create something in future. So that is our life. So we are happy to have these great people on board educating us that your life is precious. Because some people, I know that through that they can even have their papers. Because there's different issues. So go and try it and see. If you go to Abkeban, he will tell you if it will work or it will not work. Or if this one will not work, but we have another way that you can use. So please, don't just die in silence. This is COVID-19 versus immigration. So if you are there and you are sick, we have the general one that when you phone, they tell you don't go to the clinic. That is for everybody, not because of you. Not because of you. When you phone, it tells you don't go. They will tell you the process to go. That doesn't mean because you are illegal. It's for everybody. So now we are talking about especially GP, which is the vital point that I know a lot of people. So you can go in. But one thing I think, do a research. Because Uncle Ben said you should print because you have the proof to hold it and say, this is my paper. It says here. So the person knows you know your left from your right. But if you don't learn, you wouldn't know about it. So Uncle, what else you want to tell us during this time that we are sick and our people are dying? What can we do? Being scared of everything around us now. Because of the COVID-19 and let me just see. Okay. Although it's this one, the person here in my messenger says she's having 2.5 years, not for refund. Not for public funds. Yeah, not for I think it's a typing mistake, refund. But I think she means not for public resources. Because it says not for refund. I have children, but it says no, I don't have any money. They said I don't have public funds. I think it's public fund, not for refund. So I think the person means how I'm reading says not for refund, but I'm thinking not for public funds.
Yeah, that's correct. We do get a lot of that in the comment. Reginald, do you want to take that?
Yeah. What they're saying is you shouldn't have any recourse to public funds. Okay.
Yeah, I think that is the question. That is that. So this is why I'm not being funny, but this is why when you go to Uncle Ben, you can then speak the language and ask Uncle Ben into detail.
So we do have a lot in the community. You've got single parents mostly who unfortunately are living in overcrowded accommodation, and they're working very hard. And the problem is that they've been here for years, and suddenly, they've got a child who's British, and they've been given limited leave to remain with condition prohibiting access to public funds. So part of their leave to remain is that they must not have recourse to public funds. Now, some of them are concerned because either they've been furloughed or they've lost their employment, and they've still got no access to any public funds. This is what I say to them. First of all, you need to approach the local authority. You can call the Children and Family Department of the local authority or the council. They have a duty under Section 17 of the Children Act to support you, particularly where you are destitute or you're potentially destitute. Because every local authority has a duty under the Children Act to support a child in need. And supporting the child includes making provision for accommodation and maintenance, and it includes a carer of the child. So before you even make an attempt to see a lawyer or to instruct someone, or even to make the application yourself, I think because it might take a couple of weeks to get a decision, if you call the council now, the government has made provision for them. The government has given them £320 million to make provision for accommodation and also maintenance for children and parents who are going through problems. But under the law, if you've got a change of circumstance, what you can do is to do an online application. It's called change of circumstance application. And you need to tell the Home Office exactly what a change is. So for example, at the time you made your application, 99% you were not working, but most people will not put in an application for no recourse to public funds to be removed. They are happy to have the 2.5 years. But now that you're not working, although you've got to leave, you need to tell the Home Office. There was a court case on the 26th of March where a charity took the Home Office to court. At the High Court, the case has been adjourned to, I think, 26th of May, and the Home Office gave an undertaking that any person who is either destitute, vulnerable, or likely to be destitute, if they make an application within this time, this COVID-19 lockdown, the Home Office will look at it sympathetically and expeditiously. So they gave the guarantee in court that this is what they would do. The decision itself, because a Tanzanian lady is taking the Home Office to court on the basis that that particular restriction is unfair to single parents. The court hasn't made a ruling yet. They will make a ruling, but at court, the Home Office gave an undertaking that they will look at it sympathetically and expeditiously. So we are encouraging everyone who has got restrictions on their leave to remain to make an application for that restriction to be removed. But also, again, there's a misconception. When you look at Section 6 or Paragraph 6 of the Home Office immigration rules, the definition of public funds is quite clear. It doesn't include new style job seekers allowance or contributory based job seekers allowance. So if you've got 2.5 years with no recourse to public funds, but you've lost your job, claim contributory based job seekers allowance or new style job seekers allowance. It's not public funds. It is your contribution that is used to assess you. The other one that you can claim is contributory based as ESA, which is the employment support. Again, is for people who have lost their job or working but have issues who can claim that. Again, that is not defined as public funds. There are also people who are concerned that they may not be able to have access to proper accommodation. We are aware of the recent Court of Appeal case where the ELPA is taking the Home Office to court about what we called the hostile environment, one of the hostile environment, which is a right to rent or the landlord investigation or investigation as to whether you've got leave to remain. The courts have accepted that that particular policy may be discriminatory. Apparently, 50% of all BAMEs who make applications for housing with private landlords are refused because of either their name, their color, or the fact that they're holding a different passport. However, the Court of Appeal is of the view that that itself is not against Article 14 of the European Convention on Human Rights because it is not discriminatory enough. Because they say that if the person goes to a second landlord or a third landlord, it is likely that they will get accommodation. So there are myriad of issues hitting the community. But that is why your organization, the Diaspora Women's Organization, that is why other organizations like Tend to Us, like the ELPA, are working really hard that we all come together as a community and get our issues out there. The sad thing, as Reginald will tell you, he's in court usually on some of these big cases. The problem is that when you've got a Home Secretary who is as determined to be tough as we have because of political position, they don't easily give ground on some of these things. And I hope that with the determination that we have now, if we all can pool our resources together, both capital, money, human capital, and enthusiasm, if we all can pull that together, I'm sure that we will be able to roll back some of these very draconian policies against members of our community.
I wanted to say something.
Yeah, Regina, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. I endorse everything you've said so far. And one of the things that does concern me is the fact that there are amongst our community people who've been here for very long periods of time who, when they go to the Home Office to sort of, get their situation resolved, are told, "Oh no, we don't believe you," and everything like this. Just like analogous to the Windrush scandal. Remember the Windrush scandal?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think there are a few Ghanaians who've been caught up like that. That they've been here for a very long time, and the Home Office just write to them and say that you've been here illegally, you've got to go. And I think that's something that we've got to look out for amongst our community.
So one thing I want to ask is, this lockout or lockdown, some people came here just on holiday to visit their spouse on a visit, and now they are locked out. Is this a way that they can be able to do something about it? Because, for instance, if the person was meant to leave maybe in the end of March and there was a lockout, and the visa that the person was given is to end in the first week in April, in this situation, is there anything they can do?
Well, yes, there is. They can apply for an extension. Because from January till I think the 31st of May, you can apply for an extension. All you have to do, you have to apply online to the Home Office for an extension. And as long as you've applied, and if they haven't given you a decision in time before your expiry of your visa, then you'll be covered. Because obviously, as long as they've got the record of you applying online, then they can deem that you've satisfied the condition. But otherwise, I think that's the only thing you can do, just apply online.
Well, to add to what Regina has said, Regina said between January and May. So you asked about April. There's an online portal just before the 6th of April. It was by email. The initial one was for Chinese, and then they extended it to everyone. And then on the 6th of April, it now became a portal. So it's a one-page question. So they ask you your name, your date of birth, your passport number, your date of arrival, date of departure, and then the reason why you cannot travel. So for example, somebody from Ghana, the reason is quite obvious. Our borders are shut, so you can't travel. The Home Office says they will respond to you within 5 working days. However, this is a concern that we have, that sometimes when you make applications to Home Office, it goes missing or is lost in the system. So what we advise people to do, either you're doing it on your device, which is on a telephone or iPad, or you're doing it on a laptop, we advise you to take a picture of the application itself. When you make the application, you get an instant email to authenticate your email address. So you have to click that. So that's the first thing that should let you know whether your application is gone through. So once you've done it, don't exit. Take a picture of the forms that you've completed. The picture will have a date, it will have a time that you completed it, and it will show exactly what you've done. Check your email. You will have an email from the Home Office to say, authenticate your email address. And within 5 working days, you will get an email to say that your leave has been extended, and whilst you're here, you are not an illegal immigrant. You've got that evidence with you. But I cannot emphasize enough that you should take a picture of the process, because sometimes these things can go missing.
Yes, I thoroughly endorse what Uncle Bernard has just said.
And the other thing that I also want to add, there are people who are here as visitors, who, for example, are intended to go to Ghana to go and apply for marital or spousal visa to return. Those people as well, the Home Office has said between the 24th of January and 31st of May, you can make an in-country application.
Yeah.
But you need to satisfy the other requirements, and you need to also pay your fee. What we do get is people say, well, when I'm applying from Ghana, they ask me to take the tuberculosis test. But if you look at the application, the law in the UK, the application as a spouse, there's no requirement to satisfy the tuberculosis test certificate. So you can make the application. Again, if you want to be a student as well, and you're physically here as a visitor, you can make the application now, or any of the points-based system, you can make the application between 24th of January and the 31st of May. But please, again, remember that you must meet all the other requirements. The only requirement that you are exempt is a requirement to make the application from outside, because you cannot travel outside. They have advised you to make the application now. And this includes those whose leave to remain is expiring. There's no reason for you to say, because I cannot go to any of the SCC. SCC is a customer service centers where you take your fingerprints. They are all shut, but that does not mean that you shouldn't make your online application. These days, apart from the derivative right application, which is Zambrano, almost every Home Office application is made online. And when you look at the immigration rules, particularly paragraph 34, it says that a valid application, if it's to be made online, is made when your fee is paid. So if you're those who are applying for fee exemption, you've applied for your fee waiver, that's fine. But for those who are paying for the IHS and their fee, please, can I emphasize that don't wait for your visa to expire on the excuse or under the excuse that, because of COVID, I couldn't go out. There's no going out for these applications. They are made online. So don't use COVID as an excuse.
Okay, Uncle Ben, please, can you give us your number and how people can get to you? Because a lot of people, after this, they can't ask their questions, At times, because of stigma and all those, people find it difficult to read out with their voices and right under the Facebook. So please, if you can give the contact number, how they can get you, and then have more information and apply for whatever they want to do. Okay.
Reginald, are you public access?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Okay. So Reginald will also give his number. Yeah. I think most of the community will know me. I am the senior partner at BWF Solicitors. Our landline is 0208 493 7340. 0208 493 7340. And our emergency number is 07712 761 884. 07712 761 884. But can I emphasize that because of COVID, we dissuade people from just appearing in our offices. Yes, we've got enhanced hygiene there, but these days, everything is done remotely. So we take instructions by telephone, we take your documents by WhatsApp. Can you believe it? So your passport copy, your biometric card, your pay slips, bank statement, you can scan and email them, or you can take a picture. The advantage is that when you log your application, you've got 35 days to do your fingerprints. But the fingerprints, the SSC, they are all shut. So even if we don't see, or we don't send some of these documents to the Home Office now, you've got more than plenty of time to do that once the lockdown is lifted. So please, if you want to call, call. But we take advice purely by telephone, email, FaceTime, and any other video conferencing facility. That is what we use to take instructions and also take documents if we have to submit your application. So Reginald, you want to put your contact telephone number there?
Yes, please. My office likewise is don't turn up there unannounced or anything like that. My telephone number is 0207 822 7000.
Can you repeat that for me, please?
Oh, sorry. 0207 822 7000.
So you can call any of this number. Please do not just walk in. We all know what is at stake. So when you call, it's even easy for you not to even walk there. Telephone is easy. You sit at your house, do everything, but please let us also obey the laws. And when you contact, it's easy. Even when I'm telling you, there's an application now. When you have interview, job interview, it's an online on Zoom. So please do not do that. And so to summarize everything, thank you so much, Ms. Uncle Ben and Mr. Reginald. I'm really happy because I myself, I have learned a lot. So I know people out there have also learned a lot, and they will contact you when they are in need. We are not more going to die in silence. Please take the fear away. Be bold enough. Be bold, especially my own Ghanaians. We are scared too much. We are scared too much. They say it's the norm. We should put an end and go to the right and say, when I asked, they told me this. That's the best thing to do. So Uncle Ben, before we go, what are you leaving us with?
Well, Agnes, I think I said thank you to my colleagues, to Sharon, one of our young lawyers in the community. Really excited to be on the same platform with her. And then my senior colleague, Reginald Adkes, also a strong pillar in the community, somebody who's been practicing law and has got some of the big cases in immigration and also in arbitration. He's been instructed by the Ghanaian government several times in relation to shipping and arbitration. So he's also a strong pillar. And Agnes, yourself, thank you very much. I know the good work that you're doing with my own sister Marie in the community. Can I say this to the community? We as professionals are here for you. We speak on the phone on a daily basis, give free advice. There's no need for you to listen to quack people. There are very competent people in the community. We've got several Ghanaian lawyers. I mean, when I started practicing, I think we only had about 2 or 3 solicitors. But now we've got several Ghanaian solicitors who give advice in the areas that concerns our community most. And can I say to you that should you have any concerns, please call any of the lawyers. We answer our phones. My phone is on 24 hours. I know my wife will start kicking me now and say, no 24 hours phone calls. But we are available 24 hours. You can reach us anytime. Reginald is a public access, which means there's a barrister who has direct access to the public, or the public has direct access to him. So again, if you want to go to him, again, it's accessible. Sharon, he's an in-house lawyer. So unfortunately, you cannot go to his place, but clearly he's also very competent, somebody who's worked with the NHS before and now working with EDF as an in-house lawyer. Thank you very much, Agnes, and we look forward to working together again.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sharon, who is one of the executives with myself of GDW, Ghana Diaspora Women. And before you go, tomorrow at 7 p.m., Ghana Diaspora with myself and some psychologists, we have social workers on, and we have Sharon to be the lawyer side to talk about abuse. That is just about abuse, men abusing women. So tune in tomorrow at 7 p.m.
But please talk about women abusing men, not only men abusing.
We talk about both sides.
That's the reason. That's why we want a man on the channel. So, if you want to be there, Uncle Ben, you can join us tomorrow and talk for
maybe next time.
So thank you very much, Mr. Ben. I'm very honored to have you on, and I know we will do. It's not just the first time; we will do it again. And thank you all, and bye bye for now.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye.